Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Facilitator. And thank you, Munashe, for laying out clearly the reality of climate change and showing us the causes and what has to be done in order to mitigate and try and reverse this climate change. Uh, I think what your presentation shows is that science has given us a complete toolkit for action. We know exactly what is causing climate change, and we know exactly what has to be done in order to control it. However, the action that is required, or what is called climate action, uh, is still lacking in many areas due to certain behaviors of people. Some people deny the science, like what Manashi said, and some believe that we are helpless. There's nothing we can do. That's called climate denial and climate anxiety. And now my presentation, I'm going to try and explain and show that the way we present the climate message has an impact on whether it leads to climate action. Because it's one thing to make the people aware, but it's another thing to motivate them into action. And effective climate messaging is supposed to motivate people into climate action. Climate action being all those activities that reduce or the causes of climate change or that prepare people for its impacts or try and mitigate its effects. And so the title of my presentation is Climate Messaging, Reaching the Right People the Right Way. We're going to try and link science and stories with the solutions that are required. And so let me begin by maybe giving a picture of what I'm talking about. Like what Monashi described, there's been an increase in weather and climate disasters. Ever since 1970s, we've seen a five-fold increase in the rate of weather disasters and weather phenomenon causing disasters and hazards. This has led to over 2 million deaths worldwide and over $3.64 trillion in losses over this period. And 90% of these deaths have been in developing nations. And so, as you can see, we're seeing an increase in these disasters and an increase in mortality from these disasters. However, the good news is that the mortalities that are occurring per disaster have been decreasing due to early warning systems and disaster preparedness. And that alone shows you the effect of climate messaging. If we are able to spread the right message in the right manner to people, we might be able to reduce these deaths and reduce the effect of these disasters. Um, so as you can see from this, climate change is not just something that's going to affect us in the future. It is already affecting us, and it needs to be dealt with. So, what is climate messaging? Uh, the definition of climate messaging, to put it simply, is how the climate science is framed and delivered to the people. The language that is used, the messengers that send the message, and how it is delivered to the audience. And so Munashi was giving us the science behind climate change. However, the way we deliver it to people, say in the rural areas, it's going to affect their response and whether they take up action in response to this climate, to climate action. And so climate messaging is not just an option, it is vital if you are to have any climate action. A global study in 2025 in 23 countries, it found out that just by portraying a message with a sense of urgency and putting it in a context of generational responsibility will lead to more people engaging in climate action than just laying down the facts as they are. And so we're saying, instead of just giving people figures and percentages and statistics, you need to really hammer down the urgency that is required for climate action. And also emphasize that we're not only doing this for our generation, but for generations to come. The study in Zimbabwe, for example, showed that most people were unaware of the effect of climate change, or even of climate change itself. And this lack of awareness was due to factors that included lack of formal education, lack of mass media exposure, and also whether the people had been through disasters that were caused by climate change in the past. And so for communities like this, the message needs to be shaped in such a way that it is relatable, it is understandable, and it makes sense to them. So that's what we mean when you talk about climate messaging. And so even though good messaging can help, a lot of messages have failed to inspire any action. Even if you present the facts and the statistics to some people, there is no corresponding action that you observe from them. And this is because sometimes our messaging is not packaged in the right way. And I've listed some of the ways in which climate messaging may miss the mark. The first one is using
Mr. Michael, I don't know if your slides are moving, but I think we are stuck on the first slide.
Sorry.
Climate messaging, yes.
Let me try and sort that out.
Yeah, and in the meantime, colleagues, you can post, you're welcome to post your questions on the chat box. I'm seeing quite a lot of introductions on the chat box. You're welcome. Please continue posting some of your questions on the chat box as well. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mr. Facilitator. Are you on the page which is written why many messages miss the mark?
Yes, sir, we are.
Okay. So like I was saying, many people who are spreading the message of climate change tend to use too much scientific jargon and heavy words, and also a lot of statistics. And to an ordinary person, this might create a sense of alienation where the person doesn't even understand what you're talking about. And he fails to appreciate the extent of the effect of climate change you're trying to portray to them. Some of our messaging as well is also framed in a way that brings guilt and doom. You know, a lot of messaging focuses on human causes of climate change and how the world is going to look like if things continue at the rate they are. And this creates a sense of anxiety among the people who receive the message. And in some people, they might feel helpless, like there's nothing they can do. And so instead of inspiring action with your message, you're actually creating a sense of paralysis or anxiety. helplessness among your recipients. And therefore, your message fails to inspire the action that you're hoping to get. And the third point is that some of our messaging is a one-size-fits-all type of messaging. Like you create one message which you send to different communities from different social backgrounds, different educational levels. And, you know, that background, the background of people is very important in how they receive your message. And so climate messaging needs to be tailored according to the cultures and also the background of the people we are addressing. A one-size-all approach is destined to fail. And another common failing point is that those who portray climate messages treat climate as something that is separate. Climate is not separate. It is a part of our life. It affects our economies. It affects our health. It affects our agriculture and everything. And therefore, when we portray the message of climate, we need to portray it as something that is going to affect our lives at a day-to-day level. If we just present climate as something that is abstract, which people cannot really relate to, you fail to get the impact that you wish to get. Moving on, another reason why some messages miss the mark is that the messenger or the person who is portraying the message does not create a sense of trust within the audience. As you know, people tend to trust certain individuals, maybe those who have political power or those who have religious offices. And therefore, sometimes when we want to portray our climate messaging, it might be helpful to engage such people and to leverage on their social standing to make sure that our message is accepted. If you are to present a message just as a random scientist, people may not accept, trust your message immediately. In the same way that they might, if the message is coming from their house representative or from their church pastor. And therefore, the messenger is crucial as well. And also, our messaging should not be abstract. When you talk to people, we should talk about climate change as something that is going to affect our lives. It is something that is going to affect our day-to-day existence. Our message should not just focus on issues like the planet or biodiversity or ecosystems. These may seem detached from the people we're trying to talk to. And they might not actually grasp the importance of the message we're trying to send to them. And also, let's not assume that just facts will lead change in behavior. For example, if I'm to explain to people that there's been a 1.5 degree rise in the average temperature around the world, a person may not be able to truly appreciate the effect of such a change in climate. And it might actually seem small to them. And therefore, we need to package our message in such a way that it has the impact that we desire. Let us look at some of the approaches that have been used and that have shown good results and that have worked around the world. Like I said before, if you portray the appropriate level of agency and generational responsibility, you are more likely to get a more positive response from the people. Climate, you should let people know that climate change is something that is already occurring. We are already actually facing the effects of climate change. and our actions are going to affect generations to come. If we package climate change as something that is a long-term issue, some people might not be motivated to take any action. We also need to show core benefits as well of going green or climate action. We're not only doing this for the climate, but we're also doing it to save our jobs. We're also doing it for the sake of our health as individuals. We're also doing it for our agricultural activities. And so climate action should not just be something we're doing for the benefit of the whole world, but actually to benefit our own lives. And like I said before, the use of trusted voices like teachers, faith leaders, politicians, military leaders has been shown to have positive results. And we also need to match the framing of our message to the audience that we are talking to. The same message, when it be presented to adolescents or kids in high school, should be framed in such a way that they understand and that they value it. You cannot present the same message that you presented to adults, to adolescents, and expect the same results. And therefore, it's important to frame it in such a way. And so, in our messaging efforts, I think I'll just briefly go through some examples of certain groups that we might need to present a climate message in things that they value as groups. There's governments, they often respond to issues like economic costs, protections for damage, benefits of adaptation, and evidence of saving lives. For communities, you might focus on things like rainfall patterns and local examples, to show them how the variations in climate are actually affecting their productivity in agriculture. Students, as you know, are very much into social media and peer engagement. And for academia, you need data, you need references, you need methodology. So this just shows you that the way you present your message depends on who you're presenting to. And I think just to conclude, I just want to give each and every one of us some practical tips based on the evidence that I gave you on how we can better frame our message when we give it to audiences. We need to try and use simple and concrete languages. Use the examples that people know. For example, how drought affects crops, how floods affects our homes and our infrastructure. Avoid jargon and unnecessary statistics. If you absolutely have to, then try and define it, make it simpler, make it more digestible for the audience. And then you need to pair a risk with hope. Don't just paint a gloomy picture. Give the people hope that there's still time for them to take part in action that can help to mitigate and reduce the effect of climate change. And also try and speak to lived realities. Address issues that the people have actually experienced and try and relate them under the context of climate change. And then try and use different approaches, different media. Don't rely on just one media. And also try and repeat another tip is to shift from sacrifice to solutions. Don't frame climate action as a sacrifice that people have to make. frame it as a solution that they are making to a challenge that they are already facing. Because if you keep on framing climate action as a sacrifice, many people might be reluctant to take part in climate action. And then, as always, you need to monitor and adapt. Try and get feedback whenever you send a message. See how people have accepted your message. Find out ways you can improve, and then improve your message as well. And then embed climate into everything. Like I said, climate affects our entire lives. It is not just a standalone phenomenon. And therefore, when we message it, we need to make people know that this is something that is going to affect every aspect of our life. So maybe just to conclude, if you are to take something away home, climate messaging is not a luxury. It is essential. It is what connects the science with the action that is required. And it depends on people understanding, trusting, and being motivated by the message. And also each of us, whether you are a teacher, a leader, or a student, or any ordinary individual, you play a role in how this message is shaped and delivered. Like what Munashe said, climate change is real, and it is a very serious challenge, a challenge which our generation and generations to come are going to have to face. And everyone has a responsibility to spread the word about climate change and its effects and how it can be mitigated. Thank you guys for your attention. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to engage. Over to you, facilitator.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Michael. Beautiful and brief presentation. Colleagues, we are still relatively on time. I had requested that we briefly introduce ourselves on the chat box and write our questions. But just to acknowledge a few people who have taken their time of their busy schedule to join us. I'm seeing that there's Lena Akpa joining from ECA Consulting South Africa, who is an environmental assessment practitioner. I'm also seeing Edwin joining all the way from Zimbabwe. Boingenkosi Gama from the University of Western Cape, but is currently in Pretoria and associated with the Agricultural Research Council. Welcome, colleagues. Asindiswa, also joining from Durban World Trust. Sange Jali, joining from Earth Catchment Management Agency. It's a graduate in 10. I'm not sure where that is, but I would like to believe it's somewhere in South Africa. Yep, we have our fellow colleague joining Bitumela Mabitsela, joining all the way from the Northern Cape Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. Welcome Bitumelo. We have Bayanda from Western Cape University, and he studied BSc Environmental and Water Science. So now she's an Environmental Management Inspector for Department of Forestry and Agriculture. Our international colleague there joining all the way from Phoenix in Arizona. I would like to believe it's morning there in Arizona, but welcome Peter Moyo, Madondo. Colleagues. I think the list is endless, but I would like to say that welcome to everyone who has managed to join us today. Before I open the floor for questions, I think let me encourage colleagues to continue putting some questions on the chat box. But before maybe I could open the floor, or maybe let me just open the floor for some questions, both to Mr. Munashe and Mr. Michael. Just to get some reflections from the colleagues. Then, of course, as we go, I will be reading out some of the questions on the chat box. I can see Ms. T. Benwa, your hand is up, but maybe before that, okay, I wanted to take Mr. Munashe before that, just to get his reflections before we can open the floor. Mr. Munashe?
Thank you, Lebo. I know I just wanted to address, there were quite a number of comments in the chats that they are asking for presentations, a copy of the presentations after these. So I think anyone who is interested to have the copy of the presentations and the ones that we had last time, I think we'll find a way of getting your emails, or you can just put your emails on the chat box, and then we can just send all the presentations at once instead of sending one by one. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Munashe. Maybe you can just punch in your email address on the chat box. Then the final draft of the presentation will be sent through to you guys. But without wasting any time, colleagues, we are nearly closure. Let me take Ms. T. Banwa. You can go ahead, Mr. T.
Thank you so much, Chair. And let me say thank you to Munashe for the presentation. I want to specifically pose a question. It's not really a question, but it's a comment on the presentation. My name is Tatenda Banwa. I'm from Zimbabwe. I'm doing my master's in environmental law, and I'm doing a research on South Africa's climate change and energy. So, but my research is inclined more on energy. So I want to use energy as a tool for climate change, to avoid climate change, actually, as a mitigation for climate change. But if I can give an example of South Africa, because I've seen that you have given us examples of South Africa about climate change and the effects of climate change. I also want to use the example of South Africa, that if you take a look at South Africa right now, it is a country that is using coal a lot, and most of its power stations, they are being fired by coal. So I just wanted to get your comment on that, to say, do you think it is a good idea for South Africa to stop burning fossil fuels, especially in its power plants, and then we shift from coal maybe to cleaner energies, like you have said in your presentation, to say that let's stop burning fossil fuels and go to maybe renewable sources, so that we can avoid climate change? And if it is that the way forward, how feasible that can be, and how long do you think it's going to take for a country like South Africa to reach a goal like that? Thank you.
Okay. I think Mr. Munashe has noted the question. I don't know if there are any questions coming from the floor, colleagues. I do have a few on the online, and I think another question, Mr. Munashe, while we are waiting for colleagues to consolidate their thoughts and give us their reflection. There's a question which study talks to linking climate change to specific disasters. It says you mentioned how climate change influences disaster. Could you explain how scientists determine whether a specific flood or heat wave was actually made worse by climate change? That's the first question. The second one talks to regional relevance, which says, can you speak to any surprising patterns or lessons from how climate change is affecting disasters? in your region.